perspective of labor,
Exactly.
employment is key, as you just introduced your program. Employment is key. And jobs is an issue. The greatest challenge for our country is employment for young people, or lack of employment for young people. The one factory, how do you call it? One village, one factory, or one district, one factory.
Yeah.
It's an important initiative. We all have to support the president to achieve that. If that is achieved, Ghana will have solved half of our problem, maybe more than half. Because you have a lot of young men and women out there, they graduate from our universities, it takes them 3-4 years to get some very low wage job to do. The one district, one factory thing will also keep people in their own districts. And we will be able to supply high quality labor in the districts as well. And eventually, or finally, I don't know what we can achieve as a country in 4 years, but it looks like this is a full plate.
The unemployment situation. So from what you said, I take it that you want to believe that indeed the government's approach should be the panacea to the unemployment challenges we have in the country.
That is going to solve part of the problems. And I like it because, you see, in the last several years, if you look at GIPC data, over 80% of new investments are located in Accra, Takoradi, and Kumasi. Over 80% of new investments that come to this country are located in these three cities.
But they are the very major cities, as in terms of the population size. And all.
Yes,
so,
but if you look at the percent of the population living in these three cities, you will know that it is disproportionate in terms of distribution of new investments. And one district, one factory means that we are going to decentralize away the new investment to these new districts. So people will be given the incentive to live where they want to live without migrating to Accra or Kumasi or anywhere to come and, sleep on the streets so because they can get a job to do. So that is one. It's an issue, and I think it's an important solution. But there are other fundamental macroeconomic factors that influence employment. And one key factor is interest rate. That measures the cost of borrowing. And if you are an entrepreneur and you borrow at a rate of 40%, you must be a genius to create profit and create more jobs. So if government says they are going to stimulate the private sector, one major thing we expect government to do is to bring the interest rate down. In recent months, I can see the rates coming down. So government should reinforce it, bring it down to as low as possible. And you will see what Ghanaians can do.
I know you're already talking as a labor economist.
I'm not sure. I'm talking about the Secretary General of TUC.
No, I know, but I'm saying that with the sort of dynamics that you've introduced into the whole subject of unemployment and all that, interest rates. But there's this argument that so long as we remain a free economy, only market forces can determine.
It's not only market forces. There is nowhere in the world where only market forces determine rates.
So to what extent can government influence? Well, yes,
to a very great extent.
Yes, the T-bill rates, they can influence, but that's not the only factor, even though, yes.
Let me tell you, government is government. They use regulations and policies to achieve their goals, either directly or indirectly. Government can indirectly influence interest rates. Do you know why interest rate is skyrocketing or is so high? Because government is borrowing so much money.
Exactly.
The banks are investing in government bonds and government bills. If government decides that we are going to be fiscally disciplined according to the new law, and we are going to cap our borrowing, I can tell you all those monies will be freed to the other private sector people to work with. So indirectly, government has a huge influence on interest rates in this country. If government wants to go the regulation way, they can say that, look, we think it's unfair that somebody deposits money with you and you pay the person a deposit rate of 10% and you charge 40% when you lend the money. It's not fair. So we are going to cap it. You can charge any interest rate you want, but the difference between deposit rates and interest rate should not be below 5 percentage points. You see, they will bring things down themselves. So there must be a way. In a free economy, in a free, there is nothing free. There is nothing. If you say this is a mixed economy, and there are regulations, even in America and elsewhere where they have practiced free market for a long time, there are social interventions to make sure the market failures are addressed. If you want to go by this, you run an abnormal economy where interest rate is 70% and so on. In the non-financial institutions, do you know some are charging more than 100% interest rate? This is usury. This is not the way you manage an economy. Economies must be managed. When there is high inflation, something is done to check it. In the same manner, if there is high interest rate, government should do something to check it. As much as possible, if we can do that indirectly without interfering through regulations, we do it. And one of the things that government is going to do, they have promised, is to be fiscally disciplined. And that alone may influence the interest rate to such an extent that they may not even need to use the rod to ship anybody.
Yeah. Because I was more interested in the deposit.
But there's nothing wrong.
The disparity.
If government borrowing is reduced substantially, I can see interest rates going down. What they call a crowding out effect. So if you borrow too much, you crowd out the private sector. But if you stop borrowing or you reduce borrowing, money is free to the private people at a lower interest rate. I can assure you, Ghanaians, we will expand our businesses and hire more people, all things being equal. If those things don't work, that is where you apply a more rigorous, more effective regulation to achieve this kind of things.
And the regulation is where I am wondering exactly how can that be achieved. Definitely government cannot do this arbitrarily.
No, government will have to work with the stakeholders in the financial sector to agree on something. We do not think, as a trade union, that this moral suasion is going to work.
Exactly.
You see, if you want to always tell people, do it, it's nice, come on. I mean, people are economic, rational beings. They do things when they have the incentive to do it or not to do it. So government can come with regulations. I don't know if this will be the best, but that's why they're in government. There are people who are in charge of, that's what I'm saying. I'm not an expert in macroeconomics. We have a whole ministry. What I'm saying is that if indirectly government stops borrowing or reduces borrowing, and that is going to bring interest rate down so that money is freed for the private sector people to use and create jobs, we are for it. If those things don't work, they should employ other means. And we are not against a situation where they apply regulations to get interest rate down and get people to. Formerly, they used to say, if you borrow money for agricultural purposes, you pay this interest rate. If you borrow for commercial purposes, you pay this. It was very difficult to regulate and to check. But I'm sure we have good brains in the Ministry of Finance to come and work with these banks and other financial institutions to bring interest rate down.
Now, speaking of government borrowing, which you're saying that, well, if that is reduced to a very large extent, it's going to have a positive impact on interest rates or lending rates. There's no doubt about this. But then again, there's a challenge to the extent that you also know at least about the projects that government would want to embark on and all that. That requires funding. And to a very large extent, it's a challenge. The fiscal space, it's tight. And so they are unable to even maneuver when it comes to getting funding and all that. So it would then be compelled to borrow. It appears borrowing is the only way out if they are to implement all these projects. So how do you strike a balance executing these very good initiatives and at the same time?
There's no free lunch. Any policy you implement, there will be cost and benefit. So you go ahead and implement if the benefits outweigh the cost. There is no way that if government decides that they won't borrow again, that means that some projects will not be undertaken. So government, that's why they're in government. They should be able to prioritize and say, within this period, 4 years, we can undertake this project because it has long-term benefits, and all those projects eventually may bring people jobs and so on. So the benefit will be jobs, the benefit will be stable electricity, reliable water supply, and then good roads. But the cost is this. In the end, they are in government to balance this. So that's their job. It's not my job. They will have to find out which projects we should carry out, what are the benefits, and we go ahead, even though the cost will be high inflation or high interest rates and so on. But I think over time, we cannot achieve all this within 4 years, as I said. But the foundation could be laid. I know that this government is not a regulations government. They want things to be in the free market as much as possible. But there may be a situation where some very rigorous regulations must apply so that we stabilize things and start afresh. We cannot allow this free market thing hasn't helped much in some areas, and one area is the interest rate. The FinSAP, the Financial Sector Adjustment Program, helped. People were allowed to open exchange rate accounts and foreign accounts and so on. That brought in, Ghanaians are free to bring in money now, which was a good thing.
Investment Tips is brought to you by Daffing Finance, Deposits, Investments, Borrowings and Advisory.
Can you trust your investment advisor? This is about the competency of the advisor. Do ask your advisor about any investment policy created at inception and reviews, returns, promises, and risk education, and track the record in the past. Simply put, know your advisor.
Investment Tips was brought to you by Daffing Finance, Deposits, Investments, Borrowings and Advisory.
And all those projects eventually may bring people jobs and so on. So the benefit will be jobs, the benefit will be stable electricity, reliable water supply, and then good roads. But the cost is this. In the end, they are in government to balance this. So that's their job. It's not my job. They will have to find out which projects we should carry out, what are the benefits, and we go ahead, even though the cost will be high inflation or high interest rates and so on. But I think over time, we cannot achieve all this within 4 years, as I said. But the foundation could be laid. I know that this government is not a regulations government. They want things to be in the free market as much as possible. But there may be a situation where some very rigorous regulations must apply so that we stabilize things and start afresh. We cannot allow this free market thing hasn't helped much in some areas, and one area is the interest rate. The FinSAP, the Financial Sector Adjustment Program, helped. People were allowed to open exchange rate accounts and foreign accounts and so on. That brought in, Ghanaians are free to bring in money now, which was a good thing. It was a regulation thing. If you allowed it to the market, nobody will bring it. But because there was a regulation that you can, banks, please allow Ghanaians to open banks account, and they allowed. And Ghanaians everywhere now can send money to us in dollars, in euros, and pounds. This was regulation. What is wrong with that? In the same way, we can look at the interest rate and we realize that the market is not helping. And we even doubt that it's the market which is doing that. For all you know, there could be some collusion somewhere. Government should break it. Government should break it. I don't think all these banks and non-bank institutions are so competitive that they're allowing the market to do its job. We should be able to break any collusion which is keeping our interest rate up there. If there's that cartel, some kind of discussion, I don't know, but it is government business to check what is keeping the interest rate up there like that. Fortunately, now it's coming down. I don't know why. The financial people say that there's some stability, there's some confidence, especially the new government is bringing some new confidence and so on. So that could be the reason. Even foreigners who have bought into our bonds and so on are not disposing them off. They are expecting that new things are going to happen. But the interest rate is high, and I think something must be done about it. You must be a genius to borrow at 100% and still make profit. That is why the non-performing loans are going up. I did some little finance, and I know that if your interest rate is so high, the probability that the borrower will not pay is also high. They won't pay back. They go and take the money, you say 100%, it's okay, thank you very much. I take the money, I go. And then you declare non-performance. And now it's about 17%, which may be one of the highest in Africa, even by African standards. But it's because our interest rate is high.
But
you create what insurance people call what? Adverse selection. When you are up there with your interest rate, you select very high-risk people to come and take loans. But if you bring it down to a reasonable level, you have other non-risk people coming to take loans. And then you see that the non-performing loans will come down.
Okay. But from your analysis, it appears that even if interest rates or lending rates are going to go down, it may not be anytime soon.
It could go down. I mean, it's going down already.
But looking at the fact that the government still wants to embark on different projects, I mean development projects. Government
will have to prioritize the projects, and once they do, and even that is secondary, because government yesterday, the president said there is this 7-point-something billion that they have to find a way of. They may have to restructure some of the loans and so on, so that, and I can understand why the interest rate will not go down immediately, but it shouldn't take too long. These are things that policies can affect. If policies don't work, why do we have the MPC regulating the interest rate? Policies work. They should apply those things and make sure interest rates go down.
In the same light, you spoke about the fact that perhaps it's about time we moved away from the use of aid.
Yeah.
Then the question is, how can this be possible in this current?
But the president also said, and I remember, that some tough measures will have to be taken. And combining all those things, we should be able to bring back our country into our own hands and take responsibility for our actions and inactions.
This should perhaps be in the medium to long term.
What is medium to long term?
Because, I mean, aid, we're talking about funding of all these initiatives,
yes,
and all, where already he indicated that the fiscal space, no space.
There's no space at all. It's all exhausted.
So it means that if you have aid coming in, which is supposed to be free money, that should at least enable you, or it should.
But Ghana is no longer that country which goes with calabash in hand. We are a middle-income country.
Well, okay, maybe not
we are
aid,
supposed to be.
But it's still grant and concessional loans and all that. All these are
we hardly are getting concessional loans anymore.
Yeah, because of our new status,
yes,
and all. But all the same, yes, I mean, we still have development.
You see, there's nothing wrong if you borrow money and you use the money to develop your country. There's nothing wrong with that. All advanced countries have done that. They will continue to do that. Now, the second most important item in terms of debt is the interest rates. Government is paying so much interest on loans. But with the new confidence building, I can foresee that in about a year or so, the rating agencies may come out with something better, because already the confidence is building, as I said earlier.
You are very optimistic.
I think so. Already, even before the government could settle down, you see the interest rates going down. It is the expression of confidence in the economy of Ghana already. So I can foresee interest rates coming down because people will have confidence, businesses will have confidence in Ghana, and so on. So I can foresee interest rates on our loans, external loans, even going down. If we manage to borrow at below 5%, for example, it will be prudent and even wise from the international market to borrow and use it to develop the country. There's nothing wrong with that. The biggest problem is if a country like Ghana is borrowing at over 10%, It doesn't make sense. 10% is huge when some countries are borrowing at 0.5%. So therefore, we still have money so much out there. People are looking for some serious people to give the money to. And so if we manage to put our house in order, you will see foreign investors coming to Ghana, giving us money at a reasonable rate, and we can rely on that. So the borrowing may not go away soon, but the domestic borrowing is killing us. It's killing this country. If you look at the rate that we are paying, government is paying over 25% on its treasury bills. Come on, we are killing ourselves. And so with time, with the confidence building, with the economy, with people having confidence in our economy, the rating agencies are likely to give us a better rating, and that alone will help us borrow at a lower cost. So we have to put our house in order.
I get the sense that you believe that perhaps the change in government was a positive development, or is a positive development for the country and the economy as a whole.
In some cases, stability or keeping the team you have is good. But in other cases, change is good.
So in this case?
For me, because that's a very political question, I will avoid it. I will not say anything about it. But I'm a trade unionist. My members are in both camps. Exactly. And it's not wise on my part to say, oh, the change is good, the change is not good. No, I will remain neutral on this. But I'm very optimistic that Ghana is not going to go back. Whether it was in the hands of NDC or MPP, I could already see some positive things happening in future. I did not, in 2014, things were really rough. And even the unions, we were hard-pressed when we were negotiating to even accept COLA. But the following year, we moved out of the COLA, we exited out of it. The next year, we had some percentage, and in 2017, so already the change was happening. And the IMF policies and programs, we criticized it, but the government justified it, saying that that was bringing back some confidence into the country. We think that IMF is still not the way to go. And that is why we support government's view that Ghana is not going to rely on charity for our development. The tough measures, let's be ready for them, provided that in the next 1 year or two, we will have overcome the huge challenges, and then we will have stabilized. Once other investors gain confidence in our economy, they will give us money to develop ourselves. You will be surprised if things are stable, the amount of money and the investors in this country, what they can do themselves. You will be surprised if interest rates are reasonable, what our entrepreneurs can do. So I'm quite optimistic that Ghana is going to go forward. It doesn't matter whether it was NDC or MPP or PPP. Ghanaians are the ones who move country forward. It's not governments. They only have to help us make sure that we live, the environment is good. And at the end of the day, it is not government. It is Ghanaians who are going to move our country forward. The work you're doing, the work I'm doing, the work my friends here are doing are the things that move this country forward, not government policies and government.